Yeah.
Yeah, appreciate my wall. And they got a call on the way car that lost the front end of a snowball.
On 27.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I went and picked little pieces up.
Did you?
It was 4 feet, 4 by 6 foot.
Yeah.
The guy lifted the wing up and turned around 169. As he turned, it fell off the wing right in the middle of 27 going north. And I'm like, really? And the guy is just daydreaming and going county plow. But this is incredible. And about that time, this car came and it slammed the brakes on it. Just got, whew. Only took out a third of it. Pieces of plastic.
Third of the car or third of the snowbank?
Third of the snowball. Car spun around about 3 times. Guy got out, looked, got back in the car and drove away.
Then left the front end.
Yeah. Wow, lucky he drove away.
Oh,
There's a lot of people that didn't drive away from those things on Saturday.
damn.
Yeah, it was in Miami.
Stuck.
Yeah, I bet.
Oh, the
Yes.
other one in my vast travels down to Cern and Birch. Our buddy at the end has quite the mess going.
Yeah, we sent him a letter this fall already.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gee.
And I'm pretty sure that he hasn't complied with that
No,
request.
not a
So
bit. There's more there.
How many times has he been in the focus?
he's been in jail for that quite a couple times. So
2, 3 times.
At least.
We'll have to get, Bob on that. We'll have to look at that and next step.
So. You need to add. This.
Yeah, I've got about 30 seconds where to start.
Yeah.
It wasn't even 30 seconds, 10 seconds. All right, let's call the meeting to order with the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you, everybody, for joining us for the Monday, April 3rd, 2023 Credit River City Council meeting. We'll begin by approving or amending the agenda. Is there any changes to the agenda anybody'd like to make? If none, I would take a motion to approve.
Make the motion.
Thank you, Brent.
Second.
Thank you, Jay. So we've got a motion and a second to approve the agenda as written. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Sheriff's report. Good evening, Deputy Strack.
Good evening. So I have the March's monthly report. We had a total of 122 calls. That includes traffic and calls. Nothing really stood out to me on that, unless you guys have questions. Looks like a couple medicals. There was a couple weapons calls. You'll see more and more traffic as there's 2 deputies now. And the weather gets nice. So, any questions on the monthly March report?
Jeff, what's an example of the weapons calls?
Anything that has to do with like guns, knives.
Like
scissors.
somebody calling saying someone's running around with a gun or?
Could be somebody running around with a gun, could be a domestic where there's a weapon
Okay,
mentioned. Not all the time when there's a weapons call, there's actually a weapon.
okay.
You know, it could be a weapons call as since we have the Minneapolis Gun Club.
Mhm.
You know,
Oh,
somebody
just
hears shot
hears
fired
gunshots.
or somebody's shooting. That could be a weapons call.
Mm.
Just because it says weapons call doesn't mean it's a weapon used on somebody. We are, I mean. In here, there's a domestic in progress. That could be sometimes a domestic and then a weapons call with that. But over the weapons calls that I see. The one was. See if I can find it here now that I scrolled up. That was 185th Street, so I'm guessing it was a passerby.
Somebody passed through.
Yeah, we do not necessarily Credit River area, but we are starting to see more and more people call in traffic complaints with, oh, I saw a gun.
Hmm.
They pointed a gun, whether it's a real gun or a finger gun, that gets labeled as a weapons call.
Sure.
I'm guessing that's, I'd have to look up into the more details in that one, but I'm
Well, that's
guessing
fine. That's just
probably
wondering.
what it is. Due to the fact that it's at 722 and on 185th. Your major road coming
Yeah.
through out, but.
Yeah.
So that's Marches, and then we have the quarterly. Quarterly is January 1st to March, the end of March. It's a little bit more labeled out with a pie. I forwarded it to you, but total calls for the quarter were 247. Handled by the contracted deputies was 136 calls, handled by other deputies 111. Majority of those 111 are probably evening calls. Suspicious vehicles, traffic complaints. So traffic stops for the quarter. There was 147 total traffic stops. Contract handled by the two deputies was 132, which puts you at 90%. So 55% for the calls. I do know that Fearson was gone at CIT training. He was backfilled with another deputy. So some of that could be, did they work the hours that Fearson or I worked, or did they work a later hour in the evening and we missed some calls during the day? So I think on average, from when John started, we're averaging right around 50 to 70% coverage. So
Good.
Overall, I think you'll see that numbers go up as we kind of get the
Schedule right.
John's back, or the scheduling, the trainings. So that labels out on the right side of that screen, it labels out the call breakdown. The highest number for the calls for the call stuff is medicals. We had 41 medicals. Your next one underneath that would be alarm calls, fire alarms,
Sure.
burglary alarms. And then assists. Your assists are gonna be anywhere from like a car on the side of the road to like a lift assist. Won't be labeled out as medical, so. Questions on the quarter stuff?
What's numbers? Anything? No? Good job. Thank you.
And then. As for April awareness for the Credit River, we're gonna do distracted driving. In 2020, there was 3,142 people in the state of Minnesota distracted driving. According to the NHTSA, which is the national database, in 2017, drivers 16 to 24 years old observed using handheld electronic devices. So majority of those 3,142 are probably your ages of 16 to 24 still using cell phones. I see it all the time, just not when I'm in the squad. That's all I do. I mean, when I'm in my personal vehicle, I'm like, you'd be on your phone, and then I'm in the squad looking for it. It's just not there. So I do know that coming up in May, June, and July, we're gonna have a lot of DWI speed and distracted driving enforcement. So
Okay.
that's coming up. And then the other thing that I wanted to bring up is we started an Explorers program. Scott County's Explorers program is intertwined with Savage PD. I think we have 4 juveniles right now that are involved in it. And we have Explorer, I call them as coaches, but they're like mentors. We have 4 of them through the county, and I think Savage has 4. So if you know anybody, any ages from 16 to 18, that wants to be involved in law enforcement, it's a good way to get involved. I think Savage is buying the uniforms for them, and then they just go through the training aspect of, they have monthly meetings, and they'll go through like burglary calls, traffic stops, just to give them kind of a heads up of what law enforcement is. Explorers do not ride with us on the road. But they can go to like a state down in Rochester and they put them through scenarios and then they gotta interact with the role players, and so. Kind of gives them a heads up of what law enforcement is, but Scott County Savage started that. January, I think, is when we started it. Shakopee used to have it, Shakopee got rid of it. Went to Carver County and then they got rid of it, so we picked it up with Savage, so.
Cool.
If you know anybody in the area, it's for anybody it lives in Scott County.
Be interested to see how that plays out. Hopefully it has sustainability.
It will, I think, as law enforcement changes, the pendulum switches back, you'll
Mhm.
see more and more kids wanting to get into it, I mean. Right now, they're not, but they
Yeah.
will, whether they have family in it down the road or not,
Mhm.
or they may just do it and figure out it's not for them, but. 4 of them starting out is probably good, it's a lower number, but I do know that there'll be juveniles that come up and.
Yeah,
The word will, if we can get the word out, it'll be better, just. It's not really pitched out there yet that we're running this program, so.
I know that Scott County and Savage did some social posts.
Yes.
I think we
Yep.
shared some of that as
Yep.
well back in. Last fall into the
Yep.
winter a little bit.
When it was getting started.
When it was starting to get signups going, yeah.
So it's out there. If you know anybody that's shows a sign of interest, tell them to reach out. Mackenzie and Amy kind of run our program.
Mhm.
Or just reach out to anybody, any deputy or any Savage cop and ask about the program and
Sure.
we'll get them. Either to a meeting or get them information. So
Well, if Amy's doing it, she'll scare people away. No,
who's that?
Amy.
Oh, yeah.
Amy's- She'll scare people
Maybe.
away.
I'll keep my comments to myself. So,
No, I'm
other than
kidding.
that, for the Marches report and the quarterly report, and then the 2 items, any other questions for the contracted deputies?
Council members?
No.
Anything? No?
Quiet.
No,
I expected some.
not a bad thing.
No. That's true.
Thanks, Deputy
Yeah.
Track. We appreciate it.
You guys take care.
Have a good evening. All right, we'll move on to consent agenda.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Easy, Tom. You can sign in while we run through consent agenda. Those items on the council agenda which are considered routine, non-controversial, included as part of the consent agenda. Unless a council member specifically requests that an item on the consent agenda be removed and considered separately, items on the consent agenda are considered under one motion, a second, and a vote. Any item removed from the consent agenda shall be placed at the end of general business. Tonight on the consent agenda, we have approved the dust control quote for 2023, action regarding the waiver of statutory limits on liability claims, the March 6th, 2023 council meeting and workshop minutes, and the March 20th council meeting and workshop minutes. Is there anything on consent agenda that anybody'd like to pull and consider separately?
I'd like to pull 3.1.
Okay. We'll move dust coating down to 7.4. And remove that from consent agenda. Anything else? Otherwise, I'd take a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Leroy.
Second.
Thank you, Abe. Motion and a second to approve consent agenda with the one item removed and put into general business. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Open forum. The public forum is intended to afford the public an opportunity to address concerns to the council. The public forum will be no longer than 30 minutes in length, and each presenter will have no more than 5 minutes to speak. Topics of discussion are restricted to local governmental topics rather than private or political agendas. The council may discuss, but will not take formal action on public forum presentations. As everybody saw, Commissioner Wolf was hot
Good
and ready
evening.
to go.
Must have someplace else you've got to be in.
You want to turn that microphone on? There you go.
Is it on again?
Yeah, it's on now.
Good. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members, Tom Wolf, Scott County Commissioner. Just a couple things. We did approve the Ren Fest to stay open for another fall or a couple, whatever. We're gonna revisit things, make sure things are going well with them and the traffic. It's a good business and we want to keep it here, but we can't have it cost everybody else their business. Also, the water plant in Elko New Market is coming to a vote next Thursday, 10 days. So see what, well, See what happens. I thought it was gonna be done last Thursday, but somebody, I don't know. Didn't get voted on. Anyhow, we'll see what happens with that thing, but I think it'd be a good business. There's a lot of people that think it's gonna drain our aquifers, but and from some of the reports I've seen, we have more water in the ground now than we had 60 years ago. Water's popping up. And I think almost everybody in this room can go find springs in this county that, Leroy, do you know where there's a spring popping water on the ground? Because there's too much water in the ground. So anyhow, that's all I have.
Okay,
If there's any questions for me.
anybody have any questions for?
No,
Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. All right, anybody else for open forum tonight? You mean Lucas?
Anything?
Yeah, so just I was able to reach out to Sydney Nash, have a conversation with her. I'll be continuing to have that. I just noticed that the phone number she recommended I contact her, I believe was just her cell phone, isn't the one listed on the website. I think that might have been part of the confusion. It might make sense to get on there. Kind of on a similar note, just in my looking around on the website, I've noticed a few issues, things like if you click like the staff link on one of the pages, it links back to that same page. Issues like that, who would I send those to? Is that something I email
Administrator?
to the administrator? Okay,
Yep.
if I just have a list of
Yeah.
finding them.
That's perfect. Appreciate that. Cause
Okay.
it's, you know, when you're building out a website, sometimes you change one thing.
Yeah, and there's a chain.
Try to go back and figure out all the links that get there. So,
Okay.
yeah, appreciate that, Lucas.
Thanks.
Anybody else for open forum tonight? All right, we'll close open forum and move into general business. General business, number one, approve crack filling RFQ. Shane, good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. This is a fairly routine item that Credit River does every year. Every 2 to 3 years, our goal is to crack fill our streets on a rotating basis. And so you have in front of you tonight the list of roads that are up for crack filling this year. And if the council would like me to get quotes, just a simple motion to approve the RFQ and direct staff to receive quotes, and then I would bring those back at an upcoming meeting for approval.
Okay, and in your packet tonight was the map of the roads that will get crack filled or scheduled to be crack filled this year. Does anybody have any questions for Shane regarding any of that?
No. I've got one question for you, Mayor.
Yeah.
Just more or less procedurally, what caused those streets to be put on there versus others?
Shane?
So just generally, we're attempting to crack fill or seal all the cracks within 2 to 3 years on a rotating basis. So if you envision that last year there was another, a different third of this map that was highlighted and scheduled for crack filling that year, and the year prior, maybe a different third. There's a couple of nuances. For instance, we do not crack fill roads immediately prior to constructing an overlay, because when we overlay roads, that material is put down at 300 degrees and remelts the crack fill material. So we've seen some problems with that. So there are a couple of nuances with that, but in general, just every 2 to 3 years, the roads are scheduled for crack filling.
I think the other nuance on there, Shane, too, is that Natchez and 175th and Princeton were ones that we overlaid last year. And we typically do those the year after that?
That is correct. Yep.
Those are the ones in purple on your map. Yeah. Any other questions? Not, I would take a motion to approve the crack filling request for quotes.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Brent.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Leroy. I've got a motion and a second to approve directing staff to go out and get an RFQ for crack filling the roads on the 2023 crack filling crack filling project map. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Next up, 7.2, approve a resolution for the 2023 microservicing project, approving plans and authorizing ads for bids. Shane, if you want to introduce that, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So again, in our capital improvement plan, we schedule regular maintenance of our paved roads. Previously, so going back 10 years or so ago, we used to do seal coating of our roads until we kind of learned of a statewide concern or a problem that some road agencies were having with seal coating their roads. Last year, we did our first microsurfacing project and had programmed it in for future years. So if the city is interested with continuing with that program, the next step will be to approve the plans and authorize the ad for bids. This is, the project estimate is $266,000. So that would require us to go out for competitive bids as opposed to just, obtaining quotes. And the only thing that I would mention, the map kind of shows the roads that are scheduled to be microsurfaced. The only thing I wanted to point out is there's a couple of related projects that are scheduled to occur on 170th Street this year. So first of all, we have a culvert that I think is actually next on the agenda that is proposed to be replaced. And therefore we would, what we envision happening is the culvert would get replaced early in this construction season. And then later in the season, maybe in August or September, the microsurfacing would occur. Also related to that, the city of Prior Lake is reconstructing the intersection of County Road 21 and 170th Street. And that work may, somewhat affect our starting or stopping point of the microsurfacing. But I think that we still could go ahead with the microsurfacing this year and kind of have that nice new surface from the where the city of Prior Lake project starts all the way to where the county stopped with the County Road 27 project.
Okay. Anybody have any questions on the microsurfacing project? If not, and you guys are wanting to authorize them to go out for bids, I would take a motion. Actually, this one has an actual resolution to it. So the resolution that we'll be approving tonight would be resolution approving plans and specifications and ordering advertisement for bids on the 2023 microsurfacing project. That would be resolution 2023-10. So I would take a motion to approve that.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Leroy.
Second.
Thank you, Jay. We have a motion and a second to approve resolution 2023-10, a resolution approving plans and specifications and ordering the advertisement for bids for the 2023 microsurfacing project. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. We'll move on to 7.3, and engineer Shane Nelson mentioned it once before, but approving plans for the 170th Street culvert replacement and authorized solicitation of quotes. Shane, back to you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the 170th Street culvert is an existing CMP culvert that's deteriorated or is near failing. And normally when we replace culverts in a paved road, we use reinforced concrete pipe because they have just a much longer service life. However, there's kind of some uncertainty with 170th Street and how long this culvert would be in place at such time that the Pearson property were to develop. If that sanitary sewer water main were ever extended down to 170th Street, our preliminary sewer plans indicate that the most logical place to extend sewer and water would be right down to 170th Street, right down the center line. Therefore, it would impact any culvert that was constructed in this year. So that's, it's kind of a little bit of speculation of what might occur 30 years in the future. But it also is, a very likely reality. And for that reason, we think it could make sense to replace this culvert with a CMP. the CMP, as shown in the plans now, would be a longer length than installed. Right now, it's pretty steep on either end. And, there's some trees and some natural obstacles that I guess that would maybe stop or act as a guardrail for our vehicles that left the roadway from going into the 10-foot deep hole. However, if we replace the culvert, then all those trees have to be removed, and so those natural obstacles are now gone. So we're showing that this culvert, or lengthening the culvert, is close to 15 feet on either side to provide a 4-to-1 slope down to the top of the flared end section, and then from there it would be the slope of the apron. So the existing length of the culvert is 112 feet, and as shown on the plan is showing replacing it with 140 feet. So that additional length is of course split over the two sides, but there would be some filling that will occur with this. So if the city is interested in moving forward with this project, the next step would be to approve the plans and specs, and then authorize or direct staff to go out and obtain at least a couple quotes.
Shane, just for the audience and for any of those who don't know, you mentioned a concrete culvert construction and a CMP. What does CMP stand for?
Great question. Sorry for my acronym.
All right.
CMP stands for corrugated metal pipe.
Right. So I think a lot of people will be used to that, seeing that under their driveways and whatnot. This one is 54 inches tall, whereas like your ones in your driveways are 18. Yeah, it's a big culvert, and I climbed down in there when it was dry last summer, and the bottom is gone. Yeah.
Rusted away.
Rusted away. It is also a budgeted item for this year as well, so if you guys have any other questions for Shane on this one?
No.
If not, I would take a motion and a second to approve.
I'll make that motion.
I'll take Leroy and
I'll second.
Abe, you know, second. So I've got a motion and a second to approve plans for the 170th Street culvert replacement and authorize solicitation of quotes. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Thank you, Shane. Now let's jump back to dust coating. So, Abe, you had some questions on that.
Yeah, so.
I guess we could, let me introduce, sorry about that.
Sure.
Let's just introduce it real quick. It's just, every year we do go through and apply a dust coating solution to our gravel roads. We've been using the same company. They come out, one of us goes with and tells them where to turn it on, where to turn it off, and where to apply. Mostly in front of people's homes and stuff like that. I think last year did we double what we normally used almost?
Maybe not double, but quite a bit. We
Yeah.
did all of Murphy from 21 all the way up, all the way up to the blacktop in Savage, and we do Savage because that's part of our agreement with Savage that we generally do the two homes on Murphy in Savage, but because of the added traffic, we did the whole thing.
Yeah. I think last year was $1.32 a gallon. This year's proposal is $1.49.
Yeah,
Sorry.
more my question is, we saw the quote, is that actual material? Are we paying up front? How does that typically work?
Right.
They bill us, and we get the receipts from the trucks when they're loaded, and we pay for just the amount we use. So if they bring it could, depending on how many short trucks, how many long trucks, but we are billed for what we use, and what we don't use goes back. So it's just for the usage.
Okay.
Yeah.
So budgeted is 30, invoices or the quote is 35. That is more of just this is per gallon we're paying, that's not approving to go over budget. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that amount at 35 was based upon the gallons we used last year.
Okay.
And we did a lot more. We used it, we didn't turn it off as we were going up Murphy, pretty much just dust coated the whole thing.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Normally it's, and Brent can talk more about. this,
For,
because Brent is usually the
well,
one
yeah,
that
the truck,
is the-
probably not this year, but the truck, when you get up Murphy, well, certainly before 165th Street, I know about exactly where it ends. There's 4,000 gallons right there.
Mhm.
So there's, $6,000 or whatever. But if we're just, we would probably go all the way to 175th, and then we would probably stripe. So we go in front of the homes and we start before the property, before where the house is, we go farther. Anybody that's supervising it probably would do it a little bit differently, but the goal is so that we don't have the dust for the homes. We'll still have complaints. We'll still have we had complaints in January about dust, which was a bit unusual, but we weren't going to go out and put down calcium chloride. But we will get the complaints about the horse rigs, you're ruining my horse rig and. Yep. And we ask, now, where exactly do you live in Credit River? Just want to make sure. Oh, I don't live in Credit River. We live in, wherever, but you need to fix your roads. So it's like, thank you very much. There is no one to assess in Three Rivers. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And dust coating does help keep the fine materials
Yeah.
in the road. You've got in that gravel, it's the limestone rocks, but then it's all that little sand holds it together. Dust coating, it helps keep that together a little bit longer as well. So there's less grading and whatnot. Timing is important to the application.
yeah, rain and there's a lot of things that are
Getting the
involved.
grading done first.
Get the grading done first, but
All of you
once we approve this, then we can get kind of on the schedule, and we would be looking, depending on what they have going on, depending on we're ready to go, probably last week in May, early June, depending on a lot of schedules. So,
And last year we tried some new dust coating. It was a little more expensive. Just to try it. Kind of same area. And then there was a bit of difference, so.
Yeah.
So the increase that we're seeing is back on the old.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Mhm.
And the county paid for some of that last year.
Yeah.
Reimbursed us.
Just the theory was that it was Credit River 27, the project that was.
Yep.
The only thing I would note is that in the financial impact, the city was billed actually 31,462.70. So it's not a quote like the quote. So last year was 31,
Yeah.
but the county paid around 9,000.
So net to us was 22 then.
20, just
Yeah.
under 22.
Usually around 20.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're right in that ballpark.
Yeah.
Cool. Perfect. All right. Any other questions?
That's all I had.
If not, I would take a motion to approve the quote by Envirotech for $1.49 a gallon.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Abe.
Second.
Thank you, Leroy. I got a motion and a second to approve the dust coating quote from Envirotech for $1.49 a gallon. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Approval of claims. Dominique, anything?
So tonight we don't require a transfer. We have enough money in checking. So the total quotes claims are 54,621.04. So we would need approval from the
Okay.
council for that.
Anybody have any questions on any of the claims tonight?
Nope.
If not, I would take a motion to approve.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Leroy.
Second.
Thank you, Jay. We've got a motion and a second to approve tonight's claim listing for $54,621.04. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Council member updates. Anybody have anything tonight? Leroy.
I do. I got a call today on potholes in Casey's addition. There isn't anything we can do about potholes until a plant opens up. Generally, that's about second or third week in April. So,
It's depending on the weather.
yep, depending on the weather. And usually the first one that opens up is very expensive. The other thing is trees. I got a call at 6 a.m. Saturday. Our snow plows couldn't get through because we had trees down on roads. Spent 6 hours trying to stay ahead of the snow plow. Had 2 in Creekwood, 10 on Murphy Boulevard, 1 in Johanna Court, 1 on Lower 167. 2 in Hobby Hills, 2 in Normandale Circle, 12 in Lucerne and Birch. Well, that was my morning.
April 1st.
April Fool's Day, right?
So, when we do need, in Valley Oaks, we need to trim some trees that didn't quite go back up after the snow fell off, and in Lucerne and Birch, so.
Okay.
That's next on the list.
Yeah,
Other than that,
cool.
Mr. Mayor, I just want to mention too, besides Leroy being up there at 6 a.m, you called
Oh,
Collins.
yep,
If you want to mention it, that's fine. I just want to make sure he got mentioned.
yeah, I made a call at about 6:20 to Tim Kluger, who works for Randy Collins. And Tim was out there by 6:30 and he cut him and I rubbed them off to the side enough so the snow plows could get through, and then they rolled them a little bit farther, so. We have a little cleanup after the snow melts here, but
Yeah,
But that's the relationship we have with our contractors, which is
Yep.
so important, and you call and they're there.
exactly.
And they're cheerful and they work hard and they do a great job. So we're lucky to have them.
yeah, actually, Randy's team has been. really
They are
good
just the best.
over the years when they have a
Very
storm in the middle of the night and.
He waits to hear from us until he takes any other calls.
Cool,
So,
all right.
that's all I have.
So you have, anybody else have anything tonight? No? Sounds good. Well then, I think we got down to the end. If someone wants to make a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Abe. Nobody else wants to
I'll
leave.
second it.
You want to stay, you can,
No.
but. All right, got a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed?